Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Full Throttle Finance, a financial literacy podcast geared towards dissecting complex financial topics into fun, relatable discussions. My name is Felicia, and I am your CEO at Clean Beat Consulting, and with me is Allison, who is our senior bookkeeper. Together, we focus on revving up the financial foundations for athletes, entrepreneurs, and leaders in business. Regardless if you're operating from an established program already or if you're just getting started, we're here to help you make small shifts that drive better financial performance.
Thanks, Felicia. In case you missed it, in our previous episode, we talked about the accrual and cash basis accounting methods. If you're someone who is trying to decide what to do for your own business, we hope that we helped shed some light on the different methodologies and why they might be beneficial for various types of businesses. Today, we're stepping a bit outside the bookkeeping and consulting realm and diving into something that directly impacts leadership and workplace dynamics, especially for those of us who might be a little neurospicy. We will unpack what that means by using our own experiences as an example, leading us to our ever constant topic of shifting your mindset. We want to help leaders better support independent thinking in their workplace.
That's right, Allison. The inspiration for this episode actually stems from a couple of sentences that I came across while reading a phenomenal book called Formula X by Jurriaan Kamer. The book is an amazing read about leadership and implementing effective strategies using a lot of the same fundamental concepts that the elite professionals use in Formula One to continue to go faster around the racetrack. Except the book is actually about a large kitchen manufacturer and not a Formula One team. So I wanted to take a moment just to read those sentences. If I had suggested this by myself, it never would have worked. But now that they came up with it themselves, it worked. And so in the book, this isn't about something huge. It's actually really not even about something related to efficiency necessarily that it's talking about. It's actually talking about just getting a second coffee maker in the break room for employees. But those couple of sentences, they literally took me back to experiences that Allison and I both share from a former employer that we worked with, where we literally weren't allowed to ask questions. We were forced to come up with everything ourselves. And we have mixed emotions on how it made us feel. There's actually legitimately a no questions policy. You always had to come to the table with a suggestion for next steps if you encountered a blockade in your workflows. And it created a very unique working environment for Allison and I because I was her manager. So I think, Allison, let's start with what worked for us in that workplace, because believe it or not, there were actually things that they got really, really right for neurodivergent employees like us. And I think that's a good place for us to start.
Yeah, and for us, it made us turn into independent thinkers, which, and again, looking at all the positives here, we were not spoon-fed the answers. So we became really resilient and figured things out on our own, which is really good. It's funny because now I use that on my resume and in interviews that I have really good problem-solving skills. But this also led us to being into experts in reverse engineering solutions. And that skill set serves us so well now, especially when we're working with clients. We don't just identify problems, we provide the solution-driven recommendations. And from a workplace perspective, that's something employers should really want from their teams.
That's right, Allison. Plus, the structure of the office itself was actually really great for neurodivergent individuals. There was no office chit chat because they also had a no talking policy in the workplace. And, there wasn't social drama as a result for it, which was really nice after working for multiple companies that were just involved in chaos and drama all of the time. The company encouraged us to use technology wherever possible, and they were always accommodating for how we as individuals learned and worked best. We had somewhat of a make your own schedule too. And so all of those things really fit the bucket for how I think you and I have found that we learn, operate, work best in things that speak to us. They also encouraged us to go for walks outside, and they got everybody in the company Fitbits to encourage being outdoors and not just being in front of your computer, in front of a screen all the time. We would take breaks every so often too to do office planks. And so they they tried really, really hard in hindsight, and I can really appreciate that now that I've been removed from the traumatic environment for many, many years.
But it was crazy though. There were some real issues. The biggest one for me was not being allowed to ask questions. This was my first big girl job, like coming from working from restaurants and then like customer service positions to an office job. I had questions and I didn't really know how to come up with the solutions necessarily because I had never really worked on computers. Being able to not ask a question was really hard. And I took it to heart and I would waste a lot of time and brain power exhausting all of my resources before coming to you as my manager. And by that time, it could have been something that you knew the answer to, and we could have answered it very quickly, or you could have said, this is the direct path I would have gone down that would have taken me way less time. But going back to you don't know what you don't know, and that's okay. But if you keep asking the same simple questions over and over, then it becomes an issue.
And Alison, the other big issue that I had with the no questions policy was like the dynamic that it created when the questions were off limits for employees, but managers were allowed to ask as many questions as they want. If you came to me, I couldn't let you ask me a question, but I could ask you as many questions as I wanted. It can lead to what feels like an abusive relationship between the employee and the employer, the employee and the manager. It establishes a power imbalance and you start to feel like you're walking on eggshells. And that happens at multiple layers in a company. And on top of that, there's also the psychological impact too, right? If you accidentally ask me a question out of habit because you're stuck and you had a question, we'd have to correct you. Like you did something wrong by asking a question. And that's not great for anyone's mental health. And it definitely builds anxiety in the workplace. And those are two issues that directly conflicted me as a neurodivergent employee working in that environment.
I mean, thankfully we came out of it okay. I mean, obviously we were able to move past all of the abusive relationship feeling or the walking on eggshells type feeling that no one really enjoys. Okay, so I'm going to shift a little bit here to shifting the mindset. So let's talk about how we could take the good aspects of that work culture and apply them in a more positive way. This is where leadership comes into play. And the goal isn't to ban questions, it's to get the employee to think critically, which is really important. And you can do that by flipping the script. Show them how a leader would think through the problem.
That's right, Alison. Instead of giving the answer to every single question outright, ask thoughtful questions back to that individual that will in turn lead them to the answer. So let's take an example at the racetrack. You've got an employee that the generator's not working and they come and they're like, what do I do in this situation? And instead of giving them the answer, try asking like, what have you tried so far? And then let them respond and build on that. So let's just say they come back to you and they told you that they're not sure. They topped off fuel within the hour, but it's just not working now. The generator's just not working. So as a manager, you could respond and say like, okay, so the generator isn't working. You've acknowledged that employee's concern and what they're trying to seek guidance for to fix the generator. And you mentioned that you topped it off with fuel within the hour. You're acknowledging that they have done a step in the process just by literally repeating their own words in this response. So then think logically, where would you go next as leader? Could it be overheating? Have you tried moving it out of direct sunlight to see if maybe we can get it to start again after it's cooled off a bit? So you've given them an answer and you've given them a next step that you deem appropriate so that they can go and they can start working on that next step. And they're not going to hopefully take that and go and like take apart all the wires inside of the generator and do that because that's not what you told them. You told them, well, here's another troubleshooting step. Go try this and let's see if that works. And so it lets you buy time as a leader. Like maybe you were in the middle of a very complicated situation at the track as a team principal when this generator issue was brought to your attention to begin with. You need to keep working on the serious issue at hand because there's a time crunch. But you also know that if the generator issue doesn't get solved, then it's going to be a bigger issue because you're not going to have your tire warmers, your pit's not going to have electricity, so on, so forth. So by responding this way and acknowledging what the employee's done already for you. You've built the confidence for the crew member to go on and continue troubleshooting as you would as if you were the one that's doing the work. And the employee's not spinning their wheels. They came to you, they had a problem, they got a good solution for the next steps. They're going to work on it. They're going to come back. They're going to communicate to you. You can keep working on your serious tasks while they're doing all of that. So it's utilizing your time effectively, and it's really making sure that you're acknowledging your employees' needs and that you're supporting them. You don't have to spoon feed them all of the information, but you can give them little bits to help them start thinking like you would think.
Well, and that's a great point. There's a reason you're a manager. You have the experience. You probably have a little bit more knowledge than they do in the topic. And so essentially you're just kind of guiding them in the direction of how you would fix it. And I think that's really cool. So it's a great way to teach accountability and create a workplace you want to be in. From someone who is neurodivergent, I can speak from experience that you don't always know the way a social situation should be handled. So as a leader, if you can take a minute to teach your employee to develop the ability to troubleshoot on their own, you can create a stronger team with more capable people. And this all stems from a much more positive mindset than you can't ask questions. So I think for the takeaway for this is we just want to build a community of leaders who can have an open communication with their employees. We want to help you create independent thinkers for your business. And remember, don't shut down questions, but don't always hand feed them the answers. If you guide someone with thoughtful, strategic questions, you can watch someone grow into the problem solver you need in your business. And if you're an employee and you find yourself in a situation where you cannot ask questions like we were, we understand your frustration all too well.
Yep.
And trust me, there's a light at the end of the tunnel, isn't there, Felicia?
Yes, there is.
And you can take the skills that you've picked up from your toxic environment and use them to your advantage somewhere else. Not all employers are going to be like that. And you should look for something different, in my opinion.
To be quite honest. So, I mean, you nailed it, Allison. I actually really love what you said, that we shouldn't shut down questions, but we shouldn't also spoon feed them the answers. I think that's quite literally the biggest takeaway in this. And we can't just always spoon feed them the answers because employees aren't going to be engaged, which is, I think, why Jurriaan's statements in his book resonated with me so much, was because, yes, no, I agree that desire, that empowerment from the employee to stand up and take that initiative, that is what drives successful performance. But how you get that feedback and how you get that employee to be that self-independent thinker, that's the puzzle that you have to learn to put together. And not every brain is the same brain. And it's your due diligence as a leader of an organization to learn and understand how different brains work and operate. And honestly, it's best for you as a leader to learn how to accommodate them in their strength. Help them by solving problems, help them learn to think like you so that you have a team of thinkers like you that can operate independently from you. So we hope that you enjoyed this little break from financial content to explore thoughts about building strong leadership skills. We appreciate you tuning in and taking steps to strengthen your financial foundations. If you found today's insights valuable, be sure to subscribe and join us next week as we continue to break down finance with a motorsport twist. If you're interested in booking services with us directly, please visit our website at cleanbeeconsulting.com. That's CLEANBEE consulting.com. We will see you next Friday.